Okay, we are alive.
We are recording our very first podcast.
Oh
Can
my
you
gosh.
believe it?
So much work. I can't believe we finally got here. We're actually doing this thing.
I know. I mean, I feel like when you approached me about this,
Mhm.
I had no idea what you had in mind for it, but I feel like all the months of planning, all the kind of hints and tidbits we've shared with people along the way, it's just finally going to be worth it.
Well, and you're going to be the perfect co-host because you're a longtime pro at this. So I knew if I was going to do it, I wanted to have someone that was going to actually make me look good.
We've always talked about dream team. I do think it would be really important to kind of set some context for how we know each other. I feel like that's probably the number one question I get. People are like, "You like politics? Are you in real estate? Like, how do you even know Jeff?" And one thing too that I think is important is I bet if I told how we know each other and you told how we know each other, it'd be two very different perspectives. What do you think?
I'm trying to even remember when we first met.
Okay, so how about I go first and
Okay.
then you tell your version? So, several years ago, as a part of the Texas Legends family, shout out to Malcolm and former Donnie, just the amazing Legends family here in Frisco. We would have these meetings, these goal setting meetings, where they would task us with what they really wanted us to accomplish from a sales perspective. And there
Mhm.
was kind of always this big secret that the Cheney group, everybody had always gone after the Cheney group, but nobody could just get it in the bag. And you know me, I had all the confidence in the world. I just like people. It was a relationship thing for me. And so without even really knowing you guys, I remember reaching out and we went to lunch at Mexican Sugar. I don't know if you remember this.
Right. Okay.
And we sat down and it was just such a natural conversation. I mean, I immediately felt like I'm a part of the Cheney group, like I'm on this team. Everybody was so kind and nothing about it felt like I was trying to sell tickets. I remember even meeting with Allison and Laura over coffee one day and we were just all talking about, children and families. And I was the person who got the Cheney group season tickets to the Texas Legends. And then it just kind of progressed from there.
I
Do you
mean, who
remember?
could say no to you? I mean, seriously.
Honestly, I was just so excited that I finally got to check that challenge off of the Legends dream list. And then I will never forget the day that you called me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about this campaign. What do you think about campaign manager?" And I really want you to pick it up from there because I still, in my wildest dreams, can't imagine that you asked me to do that as your friend.
We're putting kind of your name on my campaign. And, so when we started kind of thinking about, okay, who do we want that person to be that, when I can't be at an event or we've got two different events scheduled, is going to speak on my behalf, kind of represent the values of my family, a vision for the city of Frisco. I mean, it was very easy to come up. So we're like, it has to be Ashley. She knows everyone. Everyone loves her. She has a positive outlook on what's happening here in the city and is a big dreamer and wants big things. And so I was very thankful that you accepted that role. And so we have a lot of war stories. I think we could do a whole podcast about the war stories we have from, the election time.
Yeah.
It's funny when you're running. One day, some point you feel like you're winning big. Some days you feel like you're losing big, and a lot of times you have those same two emotions on the same day. It can be 5 minutes apart. So, on top of being a face of our campaign, I think that's kind of where we really grew closer because you're also kind of like my counselor too.
Yeah.
Give me a pep talk and get out there, Jeff. You got this, and obviously, the rest is history.
Yeah. I mean, I think so much of what made it fun for me is because we're friends and we're family, and it was very much a family endeavor. Like, I don't think people realize that campaign was your entire family sitting down. A lot of times, my family was a big part of it. And I remember going home to Justin and just saying, they asked me to do this. Like, I don't really know what a campaign manager is versus a treasurer. And I really did my due diligence. And we sat down and Justin said, does he think you're capable of this because you've watched Parks and Rec? Like, who are you, Leslie Knope? Who doesn't aspire to be Leslie
That
Knope?
was
But
it.
it was just such an important thing, and it really meant the world to me. And it's really cool that this has now transitioned into this podcast and just a labor of love and something that we both have wanted to do for such a long time. And I do think it's important to note that, with my background in nonprofit and serving the Frisco community and yours in politics and real estate, that's not what we want this to be about. This podcast is really intended to be something we're doing completely independent of our professional accomplishments and roles and board appointments and just all of those things. And it's personal. And it's just going to be something fun and something we really look to bring people quite frequently.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun with it. And I agree. I mean, we went through all the different kind of naming options, right? And your prior podcast was It's Just Lunch, right?
What's for lunch? What's for lunch with Ashley Miller? Yes.
So we were whiteboarding. We were like, do we bring back what's for lunch? Do we say it's our lunch break because we're taking off our roles as mayor or nonprofit and we're just people talking and telling stories? And of course, as always, you totally crushed it. And part of kind of my vision for this is, I go around, and usually when I meet with second graders, that's when second graders study local officials. And quite frankly, the mayor is probably the highest ranking official that they'll ever meet. And so when I come in, I might as well be the president of the United States or a rock star. And, I tell Holly, I'm like, if I'm ever having a bad day, can you book me a second grade class to go talk to? Because I always come out of there feeling like $1 million. But they always ask the same question after it's how much money you make. And then they gasp when they hear it's zero. It's what's your favorite part about being mayor? Mm-hmm. And the way that I answer that is just all the people that I get to meet, all the stories that I get to hear, and just the incredible stories that make up the fabric of Frisco and the surrounding communities. And that's where the brainstorm happened is, how do we tell all these stories? And it's part of it that, we don't want to tell people what they already know. And so we want people, if they're going to listen in, and we have a guest and we have a great one today, I'm so excited that after they listen, they're like, okay, we peeled back the onion. We know something more about this person. And that's where the concept of Untold came about.
And so really from two different perspectives, right? I mean, that's what's going to make it so unique is that just, quickly to share about where we're at in our seasons of life. I mean, I'll be celebrating my 10th wedding anniversary this year. We're in what's that?
We just did our 20th this year.
Well, see, there you go. A little bit more experience. So just hand me that guide on how to get to 20, please, seamlessly. But, young kiddos. I mean, my daughter, right when we're filming now, is 4. My son is almost 2. And then you're in a very different season of life and kind of a different perspective, right?
Yeah, that's a really nice way to call me old, Ashley. Just saying.
Why?
Season of life. But that is true. And so, the fun part about this community, and I think it gave me a real advantage, was, kind of growing with the community as my family was growing, being in the parks, understanding them. They were on the fields, meeting people. And now that I'm in another season of my life, my kids are older, they're teenagers, we're prepping them for college, and you're kind of coming back behind and, kind of living, the second version 2.0. So I love hearing the stories and, hearing what's going on with your kids and giving advice. And, who knows, maybe I'll be their coach one day. I think still have the field house coaching record for the most number of championships. I'm just saying.
I love it. Well, hey, while we're kind of waiting on our guest to join us, I've got a question for you. So this is our official setup. I know a lot of people are thinking like, oh my gosh, they're doing this podcast. Is it in a studio? We chose to do it in this way, at least to kick it off, because we want it to be extremely casual. We want it to be a comfortable setting where people are coming to you from their home, and in several instances in sweatpants. Mm-hmm. I've got this. I've gone on sweatpants, for the bottoms. That's the beauty of doing everything from home. But what is your setup like? You have a very cool background there. Where are you at right now?
So I'm at my home office, which is, quickly become mission control. I mean, I definitely work from home a lot more than I used to. I still like getting up to the office, obviously, for our team building. But yeah, I mean, this is how we're going to roll. You may hear the dog barking, and Dana may walk behind me because she printed something on the printer, and we want this just to be really relaxed. And we kind of looked at all those options. I mean, we went and looked at every podcast studio that's available in Frisco, and how we're going to execute this. And at the very end, we were like, you know what, this is about having just a casual conversation, and hopefully we put out some good content and tell some good stories.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm upstairs in our guest bedroom that, to your point, during this whole last couple of crazy years has just been a transitional space. This room has kind of been everything to our family. So I would say the same. You may hear dogs barking. Who knows what you'll hear, but it's real. It's untold stories for us too. So I'm excited about that. And then, the only other thing I would add is that we are so excited about the feedback we're going to get on these episodes. As we launch these, we look forward to it being a very interactive journey. We want people to tell us what they like, what they don't like, what they want to hear more of. We're obviously here to know all the ways that we can improve, but really what we want to know is how we can bring individuals the untold stories that they want to hear most. And then, the cool thing about all of our guests that have subscribed to this is that they want to be an open book. And so if any of the listeners, viewers have questions for those individuals, would love to act as facilitators to get those questions answered, and to kind of just see how we can help really pull back that curtain on these fabulous stories and just the incredible experiences and journeys of our guests. So just wanted to make sure that we noted that as we look forward to feedback. Anything you want to add to that, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, stay tuned for segment 3 after we finish up with our guests, because, that's where we kind of want to do some community shout outs. And so that's going to be a regular part of this podcast is, if there's someone in the community or a business in the community that you think has an untold story, because quite honestly, Ashley, we started making the list of people we wanted to interview, and I think we've already got 3 years worth of episodes planned out. So there's just too many, but we want to use segment 3 to kind of give those quick hits and community shout outs and make sure we're telling their stories. So send us yours, and we're excited to get started. And I guess can I let the cat out of the bag as far as our first guest?
I mean, I feel like you can. Go for it.
All right. Well, we are about to be joined by the one and only Fehmi Karahan. I'm not going to lie that I used to not really like the guy. And this was before I had ever met him. I was like, he was the mastermind behind Legacy West and bringing all the corporate relocations. And I was a council member, and we were competing for all those relocations too. And he just kept spiking the ball in the end zone and doing interviews with Dallas Business Journal about how he's always going to win. And he did. And it just made me so mad. I was like,
he's your Tom Brady. That's what I'm hearing. He is a combination of Tom Brady and Gronk spiking it in the end zone. That's what I'm hearing.
Over and over and over again. And it was so funny because literally when I was elected mayor, the first week after I was sworn in, there was an annual commercial conference in Las Vegas. It's called ICSC. And basically every developer in the country is there and sets up a booth. And I'm kind of walking around doing introductions, getting to know people that have done business, people who want to consider Frisco. And then I see his booth, and it's one of the biggest booths in the whole place, Karahan Companies. And I was like, you know what? I need to go meet this guy, find out what he's all about. And I need to figure out how I can steal him to Frisco, because if he's going to keep scoring touchdowns and spiking the ball in the end zone, I want him playing for my team. And so I walked into his booth and didn't know what to expect. And he was just the nicest guy. I mean, one of just the nicest, most genuine people I've ever met. Talked about his fondness for Frisco, how we would love to do a project at some point. This was well before Fields even came online. And I walked out of there saying, wow, I just really had the wrong perception, because I just read his name in newspapers. And so we're so happy to have him as a partner now in the city of Frisco. Developed a great relationship, with him and his wife, Elizabeth, over the last few years. And, I say, let's go ahead and welcome in our special guest, Fehmi Karahan, to the Untold podcast.
Let's do it.
Welcome, Fehmi Karahan, the man, the myth, the legend that we just spoke about. We look forward to hearing more about your story and your journey, here on the Untold podcast. Thank you, Fehmi, for being here.
I'm glad to be here, Jeff and Ashley.
Well, very, very good. So, just tell us how, a guy like you, made his way to this area, the North Texas area. I've heard you tell the story before. Believe it or not, I think there's some kind of country music tie-in that kind of led you to this area, which is, great. Ashley and I both love country music, and my wife does too. She's a huge George Strait fan. And so I've been a sucker and bought his tickets to his farewell concert like 8 times now.
You are welcome. You're welcome.
But Fehmi, tell us about your journey here to North Texas.
Well, Jeff, the journey started really in 1978, arriving in New York City for my MBA program. So that's 1978, and I am 22 years old. And so as I did these odd work in New York and attended school, so, you wanted to enjoy life at that age. So one of the evenings in New York City at the time, I think it was maybe the Urban Cowboy, John Travolta movie, whatever. And one of my cousin who was in New York at the time said, let's go. I heard that there is this country western style bar. So we went this place, and true story is that there were 3-4 girls from Dallas that came to the city for convention, and talking to them and dancing with them, and led a relationship between my cousin and one of the girls, and who my cousin moved to Dallas. And so he moved in 1978, and then he encouraged me to come visit him, which I did, end of 1978. So it was really that evening, that country western bar that he and I went, and meeting the girls ladies from Dallas, really made that happen, his journey to Dallas, and subsequently my move to Dallas in 1979.
Thank God for country music.
Thank God for Texas.
Now, did you wear cowboy boots?
Well, at the time, I couldn't afford the Cowboys boot, but I have a number of them right now. So, but I did buy a cowboy hat, and actually when I moved to Dallas, 1979, I even took some country western dancing lessons. I'm not still good at actually, but I tried it all, whatever it took.
I love that about you. One of the things that I've learned just, over the last few years of our friendship is that you're not really afraid to do new things. You certainly weren't afraid to, move to a new state. But talk to me more about, let's talk about the subject of just being fearless and kind of the role that that's played in your life, both professionally and personally.
So, number one, on my life, I'm very fortunate that while my family, for certainly U.S. standards, was very poor, but I always have unconditional love and encouragement from my parents. And I was, raised with, you can do, Fehmi can do, no wrong kind of enforcement. So with that, I grew up with a great confidence. But later, a book I read and about the life of Aristotle Onassis, shipping tycoon who later married Jacqueline Kennedy, President Kennedy's wife. He said once, don't start a business or love affair if the fear of losing overshadow joy of winning. That statement impacted my life. That really what it says, that if you start something with fear of losing, you're going to lose. And if that's going to overshadow the joy that you can get by winning. So I have, throughout my life, was not fearful. You have to basically evaluate the risk and all of that. But I never started anything, whether it was personal relationship or business venture. I don't want to say fearless, but I didn't let fear overshadow my decision process and moved forward with many things. And in the real estate career, and when I've started some big project, I've been told by so many others why they will not work, and and they had all the maybe good reasons. But if I had to listen those and act fearless, I would not be where I am today, or to do the developments like Shops of Legacy, Legacy Town Center, Legacy West. So uh, I think that has been a very important part of my life. How you treat the fear, and while I wouldn't say be completely fearless, but don't let fear to dictate decision making.
That's so good. One of the things that has always really stood out to me about both you and Jeff is you have the ability to look at something that is not developed, that doesn't exist yet, and you guys can just dream big. You can dream for how to bring something to fruition, how something maybe even underdeveloped could be something bigger and better. When we talk about Legacy West, when we talk about all the exciting things coming to Frisco specifically, how did that come to be? I mean, I would love to know kind of the backstory of Legacy West.
Well, I mean, so that how did I jump to Legacy West? And really, it started my real estate career in early 80s. How I got into real estate, maybe that is something that I should really touch. Uh, and I think that's really an interesting story. I didn't plan. I was taking my MBA in finance and never thought that I'll be in real estate. And I thought that I will be working for a multinational. What it was like, how I came Texas was going into country western bar. How I got into real estate was direct result of playing soccer. So in again 1979 or so, and I went Sundays to Hillcrest and Valley View Lane area, the soccer fields. We made up teams with a whole bunch of people from all countries and all age groups, all professions, and waiters, doctors, whatever. And I run into a guy who was in mid 40s, who was in real estate business, and asked me to join his firm after getting to know him a few weeks, whether I will be interested working in real estate. So that got me into real estate. So from New York to Dallas and soccer fields to real estate business. And after that, after I worked for him 4 years uh, and then got into real estate, and then one project led another project, another. Really, it will take a quite long time to go through all of these projects. But Legacy West, so in 1990. 89, I was introduced to EDS Real Estate, and at the time, they own all of the land in Legacy Business Park, and they were thinking to do something in front of EDS headquarters, and really they were looking at the different national companies, Hines and Federal Realty Trust, and all that, and here I am, a small firm with building grocery anchor type of centers, but they liked my entrepreneurship attitude, making happen attitude, and real estate director at EDS, a gracious woman named Marilyn Casco, said, "Fehmi, you'll be the horse we like to ride," and I said, "I can't do that again," and that led into that development known as Shops of Legacy, Legacy Town Center, and as I was developing and obviously become hugely successful, nationally recognized mixed use project. And then I had the eye on the land that is now we refer Legacy West. It was JCPenney's campus. So JCPenney moved to Plano in early 80s, and they purchased much bigger land than they needed. They used only 110 acres of the land, and they had the 245 acres of land surrounding their campus as an expansion site. So they weren't expanding, and JCPenney obviously changed with everything else was happening in website related sales and those kind of things. And so I approached JCPenney and whether they will want to sell their land. That turned into a kind of RFP process, bidding by other companies because they are public company. They didn't want to just say, Fehmi, you do this. But eventually I won against 4 other major groups. They selected me, and that led into the Legacy West. And obviously we were very fortunate with timing. Toyota North American headquarters, and follow with Liberty Mutual, JP Morgan Chase, Boeing, Toyota, all of that. Really.
Well, now you're just rubbing it in, Fehmi. So as part of the intro, I told the story how when I first met you was at ICSC in 2017, a week after I had been elected mayor, and I told that story how before I had met you. I wasn't too fond of you because I was tired of seeing you spike the ball in the end zone over and over and over again. And as Ashley said, you were my Tom Brady, so the decision was then, well, if we can't beat this guy, we need to get him on our team.
Wow. I'm so excited to be in your team, Jeff. And I think that previous mayors and others tried to get me into Frisco. The timing, you and your team, and the support that is given. I'm absolutely excited to be now the quarterback of City of Frisco. So that's what all I do now. It's promote fields in Frisco, and hopefully we'll be able to do bigger, grander Legacy West, and even much bigger in Frisco.
Well, I had the honor of attending when you were inducted into the Netcar Commercial Hall of Fame for your work in Plano. And that is an exclusive club. There's only a handful of people that get that, that designation. And so, one thing that I've come to love about you, Fehmi, is how important relationships are in everything that you do. And then even when you announced Mr. Hunt for his induction into the Hall of Fame this year, that was genuine the first time that I met you, which is, oh my gosh, I really like this guy. And, now the relationship, we've been able to build, I feel like I've known you for 20 years now, and that you're, truly a family friend. You care about my wife and my kids and vice versa. And, kind of tell us about that. I mean, you kind of just took the mindset that you're in the relationship business and not necessarily the real estate business, and the rest will follow.
Jeff, it's so true. Everything is that I have is relation based, and really caring about what others think, who they are, and be genuine and honest and trustworthy on those things. It really helped me throughout my life, and really starting early childhood, and everything in the business life, that you build trustworthy relationships, and deliver what you say. I think that really, if I just look it back, and I do everything I can to just be able to do what I said I'm going to do, and then also the relationship. So yeah, the relationship with Ray Hunt, and here's a family, so much history in Dallas, and when someone like him say, hey, I'd like you to introduce me and Hall of Fame event. Wow, what an honor. This is the guy that introduced by presidents and secretary of states and ambassadors, and then he goes, ask, and why? It's not because of business relation, all that. It's just that relations that build, and then he wanted me to do that. So I'm really honored the relations that I built with you, and really, it's not in high level people. I have that relationship with my landscaping guys, the Mexican guy. I'm not afraid to go hug him and say, "Hola, amigo. How's your family?" You know, and every bricklayers, the carpenter, the electricians, and you build these major projects and you walk in and you can't just be, I am big developer, these, that. No, you know what? We're all human, and you go to their level, and really it's relations in every level, and I think that's really the key.
I think, Fehmi, one of the things that's always really stood out to me about you and your family is that no matter how busy you guys are, it doesn't matter how successful, you always treat everybody like they're somebody. And one of the things that's always stood out to me, we were fortunate enough to have an event where you welcomed us into your home, and it just beautiful. It was the perfect event. I mean, just so kind of you to have done that. And I distinctly remember there was an individual that just kept coming up to my husband and I and saying, "Can we get you guys anything? Is there anything that you need? Here's the restroom. Here's this. Can I take your plate? Can I get you something else to drink?" And I just kept thinking, man, that's like a really nice person who must be hired for this event. And I came to find out after, I want to know everybody. I talked to every waitress, whoever it is. I want to know everything. It was your wife. And I was just so taken aback by that, because I knew how busy she was. I knew how stressful an event like that could be, but she genuinely cared to get to know me, not only what I needed in that moment, but she took the time to really understand who I was and what brought me to the event, and just ask genuine questions. And I think it would be so important for the viewers and the listeners to learn more about Elizabeth and the role that she's played kind of in your journey. Can we talk about that?
Oh, absolutely. I love nothing more than talking about better half. So first of all, Ashley, we call ourselves K-Team. So we early on, and Elizabeth and I have been married now. This is our 40th year anniversary, and when we met, literally, she made 2.5 times the salary. We barely put $1,000 together to do our reception for our friends. And so everything we've done has been teamwork. Elizabeth is an industrial engineer by education and worked on the field. She ran power plant for TXU Energy, Dallas Power and Light, and she had 100 guys working. She had the hard hat and steel boot running the power plants, and I bet that those guys thought Elizabeth's husband is some weak guy that Elizabeth pushes around because she is that kind of tough engineer woman. But it has been absolutely, I owe most of my success to have solid rock like Elizabeth on my side. So her steady job at utility power company allowed me to do things that I have been able to take the risk. And then, initially I said, I want to go to business myself. She was very supportive. And then, in late 80s, real estate crash known as savings loan crisis. And everybody in real estate was selling cars, insurance, working. And I had to make a choice. And when I was not making any money, really in 1990, Elizabeth encouraged me to stay in real estate. Sonny, you love what you do, and what I make is enough to take care of our needs. And I was able to stay course and then led into all of the things that we talked early on and projects like Vegas. So not having her, and then not only smart as an engineer, but that everything we taught is relations that we do, so that people that know me, my partners, and everybody, we're us team. And so I proudly take Elizabeth with me in every relation, whether it's the Hunt family, whether our mayor Jeff Cheney and others. It's a team. I want them to know my family, my partner, as I want theirs. And I think that makes it really deeper relation more meaningful with the people that we work with. So, yeah, I can talk endless hours on Elizabeth's role in my career and our success together.
Yeah, I mean, Elizabeth and Dana, share a lot in common, which is, people will come up to me and say, Jeff, we like you, okay, but we really love Dana. Elizabeth's like that too. If you get the pleasure of meeting her, just so genuine and heartwarming, and she is like the best hugger too. It's like, I think I need to just start calling her if I'm having a bad day. Like, can I come get a hug, Elizabeth? You're gonna make me feel better. But it's definitely been fun to get to know both of you.
Well, I have to tell it, that's also Southern charm. So that, going back to the country western and what pulled me to Texas is that, I was also, I guess blessed to meet Elizabeth, and she's from Alabama and brings that Southern steel magnolia to our marriage.
Well, and we kind of shared that in common. We've talked about before that Dana and I's story is very similar, where she went back to work when Zach was born, after 3 months maternity, so I could start the real estate business and kind of work the grind while I tried to build that. And so, I think, between any great success story is obviously the women behind them that are more than our better halves, I would say. So
absolutely, couldn't agree more.
And then, just seeing your story, we were just talking before that Ashley's celebrating her 10th this year, and Dana and I celebrated our 20th, and you said y'all are celebrating your 40th this year. Is that what you?
Yes, that's right.
Well, so in the first segment, Ashley said it was acceptable to be able to refer to me as being in a different season of life. That was her way of, I think, saying that I'm old. I'm not going to say that about you, but certainly we look up to your career. So in the season of life that you're in, you've done it all, you've gotten the awards, you've had all the successes. What made you want to come out of retirement and tackle a 2,500 acre project that is essentially the northern half of Frisco?
Well, again, when we talked about the relations, about now 4.5 years ago, and Ray Hunt and Chris Kleinert, who is a co-CEO at the Hunt Consolidated, and they said, "Hey, Fehmi, we want to talk to you. We want to talk. We have this opportunity in the state that was have that land. We could possibly buy it. What do you think?" So at that point, what I told them, not that only they should buy it, definitely, but I'll be happy to be their partner. And Ray said, "That's music to my ear. We love to do that." So I think, what brought me out of the retirement, one, unbelievable piece of property in the heart of the most fastest growing communities. Not only Frisco, but behind the Prosper, Salina, all of those growths. So we felt that this property and the character of the property, as you know, Jeff, the topography, the lakes and things in this land is incredible. And also, obviously, under your leadership and the other city leaders attracting the PGA and Omni, certainly we were in the middle of that, and we helped to sell the land to make that happen. That was also a very big thing. So everything lined up perfectly. And then, of course, being able to, while I have not been in a partner or any business dealing with 20 plus years with Hunt family, being partner with them, the world-class people, work on world-class city, was the reason to get out of retirement. I wasn't retired, but I would have thought that I want to do another project after Legacy West, but this was an incredible opportunity.
Well, I remember those early conversations and lunches, and this was when I think you were dating on the project and weren't quite committed to doing it yet. And the thing that you kept telling me and George and others is that the only way you'd get it involved is if you had 100% trust in the city to deliver And, we had to have the same feeling because, as you know, Fehmi, in Frisco, we have some of the highest building standards in our city. And that tries to protect us from developers who aren't going to deliver what they promise. And then we have someone like you that's really creative, that if you're given more flexibility without rigid standards can design something like Legacy West that's unique and different. And so that was your saying, is you need the flexibility to build your vision. And we said we needed to be able to trust you to deliver. And we worked on that for years. But I remember one of those lunches, you told me a story about an egg, and that's always kind of resonated with me. And so share that with our listeners.
Absolutely. I love telling the egg story. I hope you've done it with your children, Jeff. That's a good thing too. Well, and growing up in Turkey, I think that I was around 7, 8 years old, and in this little house and little kitchen, the concrete counter, my dad called me and said, "Son, come here." And he hands out this raw egg, and he goes, "Drop this egg." And I'm just like, "Dad, what do you mean?" And he goes, "I'm telling you, go drop this egg." So I dropped this egg on the counter and shatters all over. And he raises his hand and points his finger and he says, "Son, fix it." And I say, "Dad, what do you mean?" "I'm telling you, fix the damn egg." And then I'm just really almost crying, and so I can't fix it. So he looked at me and he said, "That's how my trust is. If you break it, you'll never be able to fix it." So that stayed with me throughout my life. And that earlier we talked about trust, relation, and then I mentioned trustworthy relationship. I think that trust is one of the most fundamental, if not the most important part of any relationship, whether it's marriage, whether it's partnership, whether it's city, development, anything, name it. You have to have a true trust. And I believe trust is not 99.99%, it's 100%. If there's a fraction of a percent doubt, that's really not trust. So absolutely, that played a very important role. Again, my career, my life, my marriage, my children, in a relationship. And I cannot emphasize to listeners or anyone that wants to listen to me, hey, always be trustworthy person.
So good. I'm going to get a carton of eggs after we wrap this today. I've got a lot of points to prove with some pretty influential people in my life. Fehmi, before we let you go, and thank you seriously for trusting us to have you on the podcast today, kind of a dual question for you. One, is there anything else that you would want listeners to know? An untold story, something that's just really important to you? And kind of two, to wrap it up, I'd love to know just what made you want to do our podcast today.
Well, the first question, actually, I don't know what I haven't told. I mean, the untold story is, right now, I just had my hip replacement surgery about 4 weeks ago. So I'm at home and recouping. And what is maybe not known, I'm a health freak. I love working out. I passionately believe remaining and physically fit, which helps mental fitness in every level. So, and if it's something that I'm told, I love to work out. I do that 5-6 times a week, and always played an important role. So that's something that not only the soccer fields, but led into my adult years in running and weightlifting and all the other cardiovascular things. So the Fehmi untold stories that loves that activity. Now,
you still juggle a soccer ball, Fehmi?
So exactly. There's
You can still juggle. We're going to test that. I'm going to bring a soccer ball next time I see you.
And yoga. You got to do yoga with Jeff and I. Jeff got me into yoga in the last couple years, so you have to be our guest to yoga.
There you go. Well, Elizabeth tried me many times to yoga, and like I said, but I think I increased my stretching exercises, and right now I'm working with a really wonderful PT that is similar to yoga. A lot of stretches in my life right now, which I love it. So, what prompted to do these podcast to say yes? Again, Ashley, certainly enjoy meeting you at the event, but certainly the friendship that I build, a trustworthy partnership as the mayor of our great city of Frisco, but also as the real estate. They're in the same field. They're in the real estate, whether commercial, residential. So the respect that we have for each other, that certainly played a huge role for me to say yes to.
Mission accomplished. You may have done it sooner if we had worn, cowboy boots and a hat. And I'm learning all the things how we're gonna win in the future, Jeff.
There we go.
Well, thank you, Fehmi, for being on. We enjoyed visiting with you today, and look forward to seeing you soon.
It has been absolutely pleasure to be with you, Jeff and Ashley. I hope your listeners will find our story enjoyable. Thank you.
All right.
Wow.
That was great.
I mean, he's so interesting. So interesting.
So many layers. I mean, I think this podcast could have gone on for 2 to 3 hours. We didn't even touch on, he is truly the American dream story. As an immigrant, I've heard him tell the story, his first job was handing out flyers for $3 an hour, and they gave him one meal a day at the restaurant. And that's kind of how he started bootstrapping things, and look where he is today.
And let me just tell you, when we were at his home, one of the most beautiful homes I've ever had the pleasure of being in, it felt very Cowboys Club-esque, where I'm like, I want to take pictures, but I can't take it. It's weird. Like, what do I do with my hands, right? And I remember before we left that evening, going to the restroom, like in their powder room right before you leave. It was the nicest bathroom I've ever been in. Like, one of the things I would love for Fehmi to know is, like, how to do a guest bathroom. Congratulations. It was stunning. But I just think so impressive that the person, he's such a humble person. I love the role of integrity and trust and the importance of relationships with him. It makes me proud. And I tell you this all the time, but this podcast is really going to be a great avenue for people just to not only hear the untold stories, but to get to know these people on a very intimate level. And they're so much bigger than the front page of the news stories that we read about. What a way to start it off.
Well, and the thing about him that many people don't know is usually big visionaries like a Fehmi, they see the big picture and the 30,000 foot view, and then they kind of hand the project off to their design team and the people to go execute it. He has that rare blend where he can see the big vision, but then he gets into every single micro detail of his project. He walked me through Legacy West, and he was like a kid in the candy store, just pointing out that I picked out these flowers, and this is why I did this pavement here, and this is why I did wrought iron fencing here, and it ties up to that, and Boeing is here, so you see planes kind of throughout the development. He is in every single detail of his projects. A couple months ago, we had to go driving this. He did a tour where he wanted to drive me around medians because he felt like Frisco medians were not up to his standard. And he wanted the streets that are around the Fields development that that you're driving through the Fields development, and there's better standards in medians, and just the attention to detail is what's really exciting about this project. And he's even said, and obviously Legacy West is one of the most successful projects that's ever been done from a mixed use perspective. But he says he's even learned things there that when he gets to Fields, it's going to be even better.
I think that's so cool. I think one of my favorite parts when he was talking is I was thinking, like, okay, at this part in his journey, I'm not born yet. And then when he got to the shops at Legacy, I was like, okay, I'm 3 years old in this story. It's always funny to hear the years and how you equate that to your life. But
Yeah, it is funny when you're the youngest person on the call to do that.
I know, with the most Botox nonetheless. But, one of the things that I want to make sure, that we talked about, that we really wanted to wrap every podcast was with just kind of local shout outs, maybe our own untold stories of just something that we really want people to know. And with your blessing, I'd love to start because mine, it's really important to me. And again, it's just going to play into the seasons of life that we're in. But I feel like one of the really interesting things about slowly kind of clawing our way out of this pandemic has been the resurgence of in-person events. And to be quite frank, even just appearance on Zoom and on all these video calls that we do. And I've tried to do a really good job of upping my wardrobe. I'm kind of getting my swag back, right? Babies are getting older. Let's get back. There's a local boutique that I want to give a shout out to because it has completely transcended my closet. It has given me all the confidence in the world. But Apple Blvd Boutique, if you don't know about it, make sure that you check them out. They're a part of the Rail District. Okay. And Katie, I don't know her personally. I hope that she has a chance to watch this. We're going to be best friends, and not just because I appreciate how you dress me. But they have done just such an outstanding job of making what, to my knowledge, was kind of a social media. You could get on Facebook. They would hold up shirts and hold up different outfits, and you could purchase it, to an app that I'm obsessed with, probably to my detriment. Sorry to my husband. But they opened their storefront in the last year and have just really immersed themselves in Frisco. They've gotten involved. They're inviting local groups to come in. But just a quick story, I actually ordered a dress for an event that I had. And without realizing it, I went to the store to pick it up, and a family affair. Katie's mom, I believe, was the one working the color Pretty on the broadcast, so I'm going to steal the name Pretty. But I said, yeah, I'm here to pick up this dress, and I show her the code, and she goes to the back, and she comes up and she says, honey, I don't know what happened, but you sent that dress to Pennsylvania.
Oh, no.
What in the world? I realized that just as a habit of holiday purchasing, because I'm trying to share Apple with everybody in my family, I sent it to my mother-in-law. And I'm going to tell you, my mother-in-law looks good, but she's not going to love the sequin mini dress that I got, right, for New Year's Eve. So long story short, without any questions, without any hesitation, she walked straight to the back of the store, pulled another dress and handed it to me and said, just go ahead. And I looked at her and I said, well, let me pay for this. Of course, we'll figure out the return of the other one. And she said, it's not just a matter that you shop here. She said, but we trust you. This business was built on trust. Maybe she knows the egg story. Who knows? But she just let me walk out of that store. And of course, we've, made it right. And the dress has been returned and all those things. But to know that they're immersing themselves, that they're doing so much in the community, and that they're being such a community player, and to have that type of a personal experience, take all my money. I'm proud to own stock in Apple Blvd. So my shout out today is Apple Blvd Boutique. Katie and team, thank you guys so much for dressing me and trusting me. I appreciate that.
Well, I think once Dana listens to this podcast, she'll probably be there. They're going to take all my money too. So
do it.
So my shout out that I want to give today is, Frisco lost a legend here recently, Mr. Sam Roach. Was just such a big part of this community. Some people may have noticed the Sam Roach Business Park on Preston, but he did so much for Frisco. He was born and raised in Frisco. I tell the story that, Frisco's had so much fast growth that almost everyone in Frisco is from somewhere else. I would need to add an asterisk, other than Sam Roach. Born and raised here. He was Frisco High's valedictorian, just had a huge sense of humor about him. When people would recognize him as a former valedictorian, he would say, well, yeah, the class sizes were a lot smaller back then. But he was, he was part of our economic development team, really getting the EDC built. He loved education. He served on multiple education boards. And kind of those two values, he was a handshake kind of person. With that, that's really kind of the heart and soul of what Frisco is, that we value education. We love great economic development. We love to thrive, and I'd have to say that, his fingertips are all over this community. He'd love to tell the story of Stonebriar Mall coming here and the bulldozer, that the Stonebriar Mall was originally supposed to go to Plano. In fact, it was announced, it was put in the newspaper, and we were recruiting general growth, and the Economic Development Corporation wanted to make look like something was actually happening in Frisco. So they rented a bulldozer to start moving dirt around. So when they drove by on their way to the meeting, they're like, "Oh, something is actually happening here in Frisco." But they only
Wade Park before Wade Park.
Exactly. But they only had money, I think, for the day, and kind of the rest is history. So he will be missed. At his celebration of life ceremony, a few funny stories. He was part of the EDC team that brought La Hacienda to Frisco.
Praise the Lord.
Frisco's first economic development project, where we gave them money to put in a water line and a fire hydrant. In fact, we celebrated their 25th anniversary by giving them a golden fire hydrant, as a celebration. But he had the opportunity to be an investor in La Hacienda. So he told the story that he looked up and down Preston Road, and of course, Frisco was known for other businesses way back then. He was like, "All I see are doll houses on Preston Road. This is a terrible investment." And he decided not to. And he joked that, "Yeah, I probably would have gotten my money back on that one." But, just wanted to mention him. A lot of people don't know his story and what he meant to the city of Frisco. He was a Longhorn, and at the ceremony, kind of the final part was, and he loved his Longhorns that he had on his ranch, but he went to the University of Texas, they lit the tower. They had a candle that was in the shape of a UT tower. And of course, as you know, you like the tower orange when a big event happens. And so that was the final part of the ceremony, and they played The Eyes of Texas. So me being a Longhorn, that was a cool moment. So
that's so special. Well, if there was never a better way to describe this podcast and perspectives, sequin dress Apple Boulevard, and then the legacy of one of, Frisco's founding men. I think it's so perfect, and just a beautiful way to wrap today. And, I really hope everybody enjoys our very first episode. As a reminder, give us your feedback. Let us know what you like and maybe who you'd like to see on the podcast. And if you see Fehmi or his wife, make sure you give them a big hug. Apparently they're big huggers.
All right. We did this.
We did it.
All right. Well, I look forward to the next one. We'll see you soon on Untold.
Sounds good. Bye, guys.